Story 1. Denmark. I'm Finnish and all the Nordic countries would be nice, but I would choose Denmark because it's a little bit warmer and it would be easy to make trips to Central Europe. Danish people also seem to be a little bit more relaxed and friendly than other Nordic people. Story 2. New Zealand. I have been there twice, once on vacation and once for 3 months on a work trip. Both times I was there, I strongly considered becoming an illegal immigrant and overstaying my visa. If you live in New Zealand, you have won the world lottery, and you truly have a beautiful country. I would love to one day live there, but I know how hard immigration is to New Zealand from America, so I will just have to settle for visiting whenever I can. Story 3. I think I would pick Swiss or Irish nationality. Swiss because it is hard to naturalize, the country is beautiful, and there's the ability to work in Europe. Irish because it allows freedom of movement in the European Union and the United Kingdom. Story 4. I would pick any of the Scandinavian countries, I think, but only if I can move there. I would love to live in Denmark for the climate, politics, and also because as a student, I would get a little money to help with university expenses. Story 5. Singapore holds the title for the world's most powerful passport, with visa-free access to 195 countries and territories. The notable exceptions include Venezuela, Turkmenistan, Algeria, Afghanistan, Sudan, and Chad. Story 6. Thailand. I'm actually considering this for real in the long term. There's great scuba and free diving there, so I've got plenty to do. The food is also great, and every time I've been to the country, I've had an amazing time. Plus, there's cave diving in Thailand. Story 7. New Zealand probably. They seem to have a better grasp of priorities down there. Obviously, nowhere is perfect, but you do not hear of half as many problems like you do in the rest of the English-speaking world. Story 8. Right now, based on my current level of education, approximately PhD, the answer would definitely be the United States. I am a born Finnish citizen, and while I can speak some level of Swedish and German in addition to English, U.S. citizenship offers better advantages in terms of salary than either of those two countries. Also, I can renew my Finnish citizenship quite easily as a former Finnish citizen, so in the end, I would avoid all the hassle of either managing to convince some US-based company to sponsor all the paperwork for me or specifically finding and marrying a US citizen to get the green card. Story 9. New Zealand. I've been there. It's an interesting place. Amazing, their culture. And people say it's a bit like Switzerland. Well, I would say it's a bit like the scenery. Story 10. I would want to stay an EU citizen for sure. I know it is kind of cheating, but I could continue to work and live here uninterrupted with another European citizenship. I would probably choose one that is least likely to vote to leave the European Union. Probably Luxembourg. Story 11. Spain, but I'm working on that now, so hopefully the dream will become a reality. From the United States, I understand why my ancestors left Spain because of the civil wars, but I wish they had gone back before I was born. Story 12. Denmark, Sweden, or Norway. I don't like warm climates. It is not that far from my home country, and the quality of life seems to be comparatively good. Story 13. Tempting to say New Zealand, because it's so beautiful, but I'd feel so isolated. Plenty of climates and landscapes within the country, and Australia is fairly close, but I wouldn't be able to do city trips in Europe anymore. I think I'd go with Switzerland or Portugal. Both countries are gorgeous. Switzerland is very central in Europe and mostly neutral, which I like. Portugal has nice weather. I also thought of the United Kingdom or Ireland, but I'm not entirely sure about that, even though the United Kingdom is our favorite vacation destination in Europe. It would be our runner-up. Story 14. Canada, Ireland, or New Zealand maybe. I've studied Spanish most of my life and lived in Mexico and Central America, but honestly, as I get older, I realize my dream of living in Patagonia or Costa Rica would be hard for me in my senior years. So, someplace with my native language, a history of neutrality or steady democracy, nationalized healthcare, good weather in the climate change scenarios to come, and plenty of water resources. I've only visited Ireland twice, but I've been all over Canada and love it. Never been to New Zealand, but it sounds good. I guess I would go to Canada if I could swap passports. Story 15. As a Southern Catalan person with zero attachment to my Spanish citizenship, I absolutely would choose Switzerland or Iceland if I could. Switzerland for the rationalized direct democracy and top-notch civility and quality of life, and Iceland for the close-knit community and civility of the population. Its absolutely amazing language, and the otherworldly beauty of their landscapes. Both countries have outstanding respect for personal space, human rights, democracy, safety, cleanliness, education, etc., which are what make a country worthy of living in. I would gladly assimilate there. Andorra is a country I would love to have a passport from for cultural reasons, but it really has gone downhill in the past few years. On the other hand, I may be getting South Korean citizenship in the future due to my life decisions. And although it is very different from my ideal choices in Iceland and Switzerland, it is still, in my opinion, miles better than having citizenship from Spain. Story 16. As a dual citizen of two of the arguably best countries to have citizenship in Finland and Sweden, maybe Norway and Iceland, Iceland just seems amazing, and Norway would be similar to Sweden in most ways, as far as I know. Story 17. I would really like a United States citizenship, except for some reason they force you to pay United States taxes even if you live and earn abroad, and I might not want to relocate permanently. Switzerland also sounds like a nice option, but I think I would struggle learning German. In any case, it is a moot point because my country does not allow for dual citizenship. Story 18. Probably the United States. I really like how they specialize in the aerospace industry, such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. I would love to work in places like those as an engineer, but unless you're a citizen there, the chances are very slim. I guess I have to live long enough to find out. Story 19. Why is everyone saying Swiss? These propaganda bots are getting out of hand. In my opinion, I would probably go to the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea because of their freedom, nature, education, and their glorious leader Kim Jong-un. Story 20. I would want to go somewhere with really permissive gun rights comparable to certain US states like Kentucky, but also with plenty of rural land to build up a family compound since that's the dream. Honestly, I don't know where I could go for that, but that would be the goal, maybe Switzerland or the Czech Republic. Story 21. Poland, no non-European immigrants, good wealth, basically Germany light. Austria, Germany light, the language is tricky. Sweden, Canada, for nature and not so much of a language barrier, less social. New Zealand, nature, basically paradise. Italy, food, culture, architecture. Story 22. I'm half Norwegian and a quarter Finnish, so maybe one of those countries. I apparently have loads of relatives in Finland since my grandma was first generation born here in the United States. My two uncles went to family reunions there a few times between them, I think. Story 23. Prague for me. Such a beautiful city. I'm not quite sure if it's as affordable as it once was, but it's so pretty. That or Costa Rica. There's a big difference between the two. Story 24. Ireland or New Zealand. Visited both for a week and just drove around. Really enjoyed the vibes. People have heart attacks everywhere, so I'd have a job. Story 25. With New Zealand citizenship, I can live and work in my home country, Australia, without a visa, meaning my life would change very little. Story 26. As a Kiwi, I'm happy living here in New Zealand. And as a New Zealander, I can travel and work in Australia visa-free. But maybe having dual citizenship with a European Union country would make visa-free traveling easier. Story 27. Canada, probably. We're neighbors, so visiting family wouldn't be too much of a hassle as opposed to living overseas, I think. And they speak English, so that works for me. I would learn French for them too, though. I know some parts of the country speak it, if not all. Story 28. Canada, Norway, or Sweden. Canada because they might be wary of me being a United States citizen. But once they see how much more like them than us I am, they might have sympathy. Norway and Sweden because they are some of the most peaceful places to live, even if they tend to be expensive. I know that doesn't mean I wouldn't get harassed or bullied, but being turned down for so many jobs because of how I look is getting dangerous. I might even be able to actually lose weight there. Story 29. New Zealand, hands down. Speaking as a lifelong citizen of the United States who has lived in Florida for most of my life, we have visited New Zealand 3 times, spending a total of about 60 days spread out over many communities on both islands. We have visited and learned about life in most of Western Europe as well as Australia. There are so many great things about New Zealand, but what struck us is the vastly smaller proportion of citizens there who act like entitled individuals compared to the United States. Kiwis seem to see fellow humans more like fellow human beings rather than inconvenient people to be used, avoided, or defeated. Story 30. As a Swede, any Nordic country would do, but probably Finland or Iceland. Finland, because I can try to go somewhere with a lot of Finland Swedes, so I can just speak Swedish and get documents in Swedish and everything since it's a fairly large minority language there. Iceland, because Iceland is cool, and I'm learning Icelandic anyway. So either of the places where I'd speak the language essentially. Story 31. Iceland, Ireland, New Zealand. I am currently a citizen of the United States. I will say, the only thing daunting with Iceland is the midnight sun. I've been to Anchorage during the solstice, and I am not sure I'd be able to adapt to the significant change in daylight hours. I currently live around the 45th parallel. Story 32. Spain always looked really cool, and I already speak Spanish, so that would probably be the smartest choice. However, Finland and Denmark are consistently rated as some of the best countries to live in with the happiest people, so ideally there. I would just need to learn a new language. Story 33. As a Canadian, most likely a Scandinavian country. Being so close to those nutbags below kind of freaks me out. Also, the Eras tour brought me to Sweden this year, a country I never thought I would have the chance to visit, and it was incredible. Story 34. As an American, my first choice is probably Australia or New Zealand. My wife says no to Australia because she's scared of bugs. But I used to live in the Philippines, so I'm accustomed to bugs. Realistically, we'd probably choose Canada to maintain proximity to our families. But as someone who lives in Minnesota, it's hard to choose more cold over somewhere warmer. Story 35. Ireland. Friendly people, nice climate, not too hot or cold, beautiful scenery, not too long of a flight to visit other places. My definition of paradise. Story 36. They do not take many, but I would really like New Zealand. However, for work, I have been offered truck driver jobs in Australia before. Just thinking of all those borders to cross in Europe makes me want Australia. Story 37. I don't even know at this point. I only speak English, but as a transgender woman, the English-speaking countries are not exactly friendly places, and many non-English-speaking countries are worse. Story 38. Sweden is as far south as possible. They have tremendous per capita wealth and one of the best healthcare systems in the world. Additionally, they consistently rate highly in quality of life and the happiness index. Story 39. I carry both British and Irish passports already, but if I had to pick a third, New Zealand or Netherlands. I spent several years in the Netherlands as a kid, and as a result, spoke fluently. My reading and writing weren't as strong. I think I could pick it back up again. Same for German. New Zealand would just mean less effort, laugh out loud. Story 40. It's tough. I'm Irish, and like others have pointed out, we have one of the strongest passports in the entire world. I could live almost anywhere I wanted to in Europe, and I could live in the United Kingdom with no issues. If I had to pick, it would be Australia or the United States. Two countries with massive Irish communities and cultural ties to my homeland. Story 41. New Zealand. Not perfect, but better than my current country by leaps and bounds. And most safe when World War III comes about and nuclear weapons start going left and right. Story 42. I'm Australian, so I'm pretty fine with my current passport, but I'd say maybe Finland, Ireland, Canada, or perhaps Estonia. New Zealand would be the most sensible if I didn't want to move. Story 43. Sometimes, I think citizens in larger countries ought to think about how residents in other states or provinces could be beneficial for their dispositions. I'd be a solid Montanan, and I can get down with some Alaskans. To answer the question, as a redhead with a penchant for the outdoors and the cold, probably Sweden, Norway, or Scotland. Story 44. Probably Norway, where my heritage is based, or Germany. I would love to be around more like-minded people and deal less with the bootstraps American ideal. Also, Americans only thinking immigrants are brown people who have a seedy criminal record. If you are not Native American, you are an immigrant. I'll die on that hill. Story 45, United States, hands down. Of course, I wouldn't travel there to live, because I'd rather not be stabbed by an opiate addict or shot by another constantly discriminated, gun-wielding minority and bleed to death as my non-English Uber driver takes me to the hospital included in my insurance plan, which turns out isn't the closest one. No, not that. I'd rather use my extremely powerful passport, which allows me to visit basically any non-fundamentalist or non-communist country. And if it does, then there's usually some decent embassy to help me should anything happen. Then there's also the possibility to work from home and live in a cheap country with a good United States dollar exchange rate, as well as being able to buy, for example, almost any Lexus for like 2/3 the price of its European counterpart. Story 46. As an American, it would be one of 5 places: China, South Korea, Japan, Thailand, or Canada. Most likely Thailand. I'm actually trying to start that process soon. Story 47. These threads are always the same. 95% of people are saying which countries they enjoy with a high quality of life. And 5% of Americans are upset that the United States isn't even in the top 10.